Former President Trump just arriving at Trump Tower, leaving court in New York City after showing up for the first day in his civil fraud trial. We're going to have much more on that in just a minute. But first, was it a stunt to shut down the government, or is this progressive lawmaker just plain stupid? Capitol Police are investigating Congressman Jamaal Bowman after the New York Democrat yanked a fire alarm right before the House was about to vote on a bill to avert a government shutdown. Bowman says there was no ill intent. It was just an embarrassing mistake. You see, he was rushing to get to a vote and then came to this door that's normally open, but it was locked. A little strange, given that these doors have signs on them that say emergency exit only, but okay. So he did what any of us would have done and decided to pull the bright red alarm that's clearly marked with the word fire. Bowman seems to be very confused on why people are making such a big deal out of this.
Do you still stand by your statement that pulling the fire alarm was an accident?
You know, I don't know why this has gotten so much attention. I was literally just in a rush to go vote, man. That's all it was.
Mm-hmm. Are you afraid of any repercussions, either from leadership or from legally from Capitol Police?
I mean, listen, I take responsibility for what I did, you know, but like I said, I was in a rush to go vote.
But hey, the law is the law. Bowman could face more than 30 years behind bars for the fire alarm pull. AOC and the liberal media coming to his defense and somehow found a way to blame Republicans for it.
They're filing a motion to expel a member who, in a moment of panic, was trying to escape a vestibule. Give me a break.
There was a mention of Jamaal Bowman, Congressman Jamaal Bowman, and the pulling of some sort of fire alarm, just to clarify some things on that, because I know there was likely some folks kind of scratching their heads wondering what it was they were asking Speaker McCarthy about.
That's real serious, and frankly reeks of the sort of stunts that, you know, Republicans try to pull sometimes. And don't be like Republicans.
But Republicans want to make this, they want to kind of see how far they can run the trail on this here. So we have not heard the last about fire alarm gate from this weekend.
And our very own Peter Ducey is asking if the White House knows anything about Fire Marshal Bowman.
Would President Biden ever try to get out of a meeting by pulling a fire alarm?
Are you talking about something specifically?
A Democratic member of Congress pulled a fire alarm around a series of votes. No fire. Is that appropriate?
What I can tell you is I'm not spoken to the president about this, and so just not going to comment.
And she's not going to comment. All right, Jessica, is Bowman dumb or lying?
That's not a very nice choice to have to make.
I mean, it's one or the other.
I'm going to go with the nicest version of dumb then, because I don't think that he's lying about this. First of all, this wasn't the building that the vote was occurring in the first place. Why he would be trying to stall a vote that all of the Democrats were voting for was going to pass overwhelmingly doesn't really add up. The Capitol Police have released a statement which seems to affirm that he tried to open the door first. And I do think the sign on the door, which says, like, push the door and then the alarm will sound for 30 seconds or whatever it is a bit confusing.
Oh, it's confusing.
But obviously he should know better. He was also a principal before he became a congressman. He knows about fire safety.
That's confusing.
Push until alarm sounds for 3 seconds. Doors will unlock in 30 seconds.
Emergency. If it's an emergency. So
emergency
don't touch it
only.
unless it's an emergency.
I led with
Find another
nicest
exit.
version of dumb.
Okay.
The really bad part, though, is the Nazi statement that came out from his team. So they sent around first to lawmakers, but then it got leaked to the press that the focus shouldn't be on Congressman Bowman's actions, but the Nazi Republicans, blah, blah, blah. He has issued a statement saying he doesn't think that word should be used, et cetera. But now, of course, it's going to get everyone hyped up. Is it going anywhere? No, you need 2/3 of the House to vote to expel him. That's obviously not happening, but it was a weird aside. When I saw it show up on Twitter, I was like, is this a real thing?
I mean, it was a real thing, Judge, because the Democrats were trying to stall and read whatever bill was about to come.
Well, there's no question, and I disagree with my colleague on the left when she says, why would he want to stall the vote? I'll tell you why. Because the day before he tried to stall it by pulling a fire alarm, and he certainly knows full well what happens when you pull a fire alarm, because as a school principal, he had many fire drills with those kids. Okay, he actually texts the day before, Republican mathematics is causing catastrophic shutdown that will force millions of working people to go without pay or life-saving benefits, and calling it fiscal responsibility as he condemned the Republicans. They wanted to blame the Republicans for a shutdown. They wanted this to happen. That's why he pulled it.
But we have a continuing resolution.
That's why he wanted to slow it down. And even the New York Post, an effort to sabotage budget negotiations by pulling a fire alarm in the House building. His disruption occurred just as the Democrat leaders in Congress were stalling for time. This is a concerted effort. And let me tell you, when the Democrats criticize the Republicans for something that they themselves did, it just shows you how out of touch they are. And you know what? The sign on that door says emergency exit only. He's a congressman. He knows how to go through the tunnels from one building to the next. Everybody who's in Washington knows that. They didn't want the bill. They wanted to blame Republicans. And by the way, it's not just the 30 years that you talk about. In D.C., he faces 6 months for a violation of the fire alarm pull.
30 years, Greg.
I
You
don't
think he should serve time?
Every single year. I wouldn't dismiss the calling Republicans Nazis so lightly, because this has always been part of the strategy. If you call somebody Hitler or you call somebody a Nazi, why wouldn't you sabotage a vote? Why wouldn't you rig an election? Why wouldn't you create a witch hunt against the person that you've been calling Hitler? So they call them Nazis to justify this behavior. Anything is possible. No question, he tried to interrupt a government official business. This is probably the worst deliberate act since 9/11. The question is, does he go to prison? It's for how long? He was trying to initiate an insurrection on his own, and he should be treated just like the January 6ers, which gets to my amazing comparison. When you think about the extreme, wacky participants of what happened on January 6th, the nutty conspiracists, the QAnon suckers, the misguided pirates, they weren't a sitting congressman, and that's the key difference in these parties. On the right, the freaks aren't in power. On the left, the freaks are in power. And if you want proof, compare how they create their own conspiracies. The conspiracies' origins on the right, they bubble up from chat rooms. They bubble up from Reddit or nobodies in forums and chat rooms, right? And they're crazy, and they don't really go anywhere. But on the left, their conspiracies are created by a cabal of institutions, right? And politicians. Who created the Steele dossier? That didn't come from a QAnon. That came from Hillary, right? The Russian collusion, suppressing Hunter's laptop. These were all done by professionals, people that are high up in the party. So on the right, the nuts remain nuts. On the left, the nuts become elevated, and they end up running the country. I think we should be really, really frightened by that. This dude has to face the same consequences. He should not be, he should be expelled. That's what you would do in his school. As a principal, you would expel a student for pulling that. So he should go to jail.
When I pulled alarms in high school, I was usually suspended.
Yeah?
The third time, I think, was the expulsion.
Wait, you did this regularly?
All the time.
You
can't get out of tests. If there was a test that I didn't study for,
are you kidding?
Of course I'm kidding.
Okay, good. I'm trying to save you.
Of course I'm kidding. Martha, what do you think should happen here?
Well, if the original question was, is he dumb or is he lying? I think that the proper course for him, the only thing that could have made him look better in this situation is if he said, you're damn right I pulled the alarm. And you know why? Because I want to read the bill. Right? I want to pause the process. So that might have been one course of action that he could have taken. Honesty sometimes could be very helpful. If you wonder why Congress has a 19% approval rating, right? Just take a look at Jamaal Bowman and the principal who pulls the fire alarm. Take a look at Fetterman and his sweats. Take a look at Boebert and the groping. Take a look at Santos and the lying. I mean, you wonder why people do not have respect for this body. Case closed.
Can I throw in another option?
It was consensual groping, we believe, right?
Yeah, leave it. Yeah. It's not. There's another option.
Grown-ups, please.
Lying, stupid, or drunk. People who are drunk pull fire alarms, usually around last call, if they get thrown out of a bar, or if they
don't have money to pay the bill.
Exactly. Yeah. He might have been drunk.
Let's drug test him also.
Yes.
Fine by me. I would just like to add, though, that there were Republican congressmen like this Barry Loudermilk from Georgia who was giving tours to January 6th insurrectionists the day before.
That was a
I get it. All right.
Debunked.
Everything I say is a hoax.
Solitary confinement.
That was debunked, Jessica.
no,
We gotta
it
go,
wasn't.
though. Well, I debunked it, and it's been debunked.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.